Welcome back to Learn to Play. Today we are doing how to make a build order, part 3 of a 3-part series. So in parts number 1 and 2, we looked at how to get our economy roaring and also stop any of the attacks that can pop up. We still have a remaining issue, and that is defending against all the different attacks. There can be so many different attacks that pop up into our base, and the fact that we have to defend it sometimes means we have to supply cut for that attack, or sometimes we need a different army composition. There's just so many. And today we're going to look and tackle that issue, and it's defending with intelligence. And that's going to be through the uses of ranges and scouting. And I'm going to explain all of that. Right now, let's go into the problem, and I'll be able to contextualize it a lot more. So as you can see in the graph, this is a Terran versus Terran, and these are the possible outcomes that our opponent could do. They could just macro, they could do a couple aggressive build orders, tech build orders, etc. If we don't know what our opponent is capable of doing, any of these are possible. So we say our opponent has 100% of his or her range, right? It's 100% of build orders are encompassed if we have no clue what we're up against. So if we're up against a macro build, well, if we start defending against stuff, nothing's going to be coming because they're just going macro. So we will get behind. And of course, there's so many different builds that you have to take into account that there's a lot of room for us to just lose. Right? It's just we go to macro, they go to macro, but we're defending too much, and then they just overpower us with a lot more units than we have. That's a big problem. That is the problem that I should say. Now, what happens when we remove some of this range? So let's take out the left-hand side, right? Let's just take out the macro builds. Now we know we're defending against some sort of all-in or some sort of pressure build. Well, that's a lot easier to defend against because now I know I can go to macro and eventually win, right? I just have to stop the attacks. What if I only have to defend against one sliver of things? Well, that makes it a lot easier, right? I don't have to defend against proxy builds. So look, I'm perfect. I can just play against, the very, very aggressive siege tank push, and I'm fine. I get my own siege tanks. I get my expansion. Good to go. So how do we get rid of some of this range? How do we get rid of the fact that we know they are or are not going some sort of proxy build or fast tech play or some sort of siege tank push? That comes down to scouting, and that's why scouting is so important. You can look at scouting as defending against each of these ranges. And whether you see something or not, some sort of trigger, some sort of build order, whatever it might be, that's going to allow you to see whether or not you should defend against these ranges and whether or not you can just continue on into economy. Let's go into some replays to look at how we reduce our opponent's ranges to play a little bit better. All right, starting things off with a Terran versus Zerg. You can see I'm doing a very regular build, and I'm getting in here at the 3 minutes and 26 second mark. Okay, so let's talk real quick about what I see. And this is a perfect example of how the ranges are going to be eliminated. A lot of the ranges. So right now I get in here at 3 minutes and 26 seconds, as I said. And I see no gases. And when I see no gases, I know metabolic boost plus the extractor plus mining all of that gas takes 3 minutes and 10 seconds in total, because I've done the math. 3 minutes and 10 seconds for it to go up. So I'm looking at this clock and I say, okay, the earliest you can have it right now is like 6:45 really, because I can still see the gases. 6:45. I've just eliminated every single all-in or pressure build other than Slowlings out of his capacity to attack me. That is insane, right? That is a lot I don't have to worry about. That means I probably don't have to make a bunker. I probably don't have to make, a lot of defenses. Maybe just this, like one Marine is going to be capable of defending against anything that can come at me. It's because my opponent does not threaten me at all. This is one of the perfect ways in this beginning stage that we can eliminate some of the range. I want you guys now to see how everything has changed based on what I've seen. Because I know that there's no early game pressure, look at this. 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Just 2 minutes after I went in and saw my opponent's base, I already know, and it influenced my build thereafter. I haven't gone much other than, well, nothing but command centers. This is a very, very fast command center. This is a 5-minute, 15-second command center. That's incredibly fast against regular timings. Normally it's anywhere from 5:45 to 6 minutes, but I can get it 30 seconds faster because I already know what my opponent is capable of. This is how we slowly alter the build, and you can see macro builds are ever changing based on your opponent. You sometimes are playing a little bit greedier, sometimes you're playing a lot more defensive. It depends on your opponents, what you see, and how you're scouting out your opponent. Now we're in a PvP, and we're going to do something very, very similar. So just like the Terran vs. Zerg we saw last time, let's go ahead and analyze. So right now what we're seeing is the Nexus with just one chrono boost on it. We have a good number of probes. This is coming in around 3 minutes and 55 seconds. That's when my probe first entered. So I can see that warp gate has just started too. This is really important. If there was a 4 gate, even if this was going up, if there was a 4 gate and there would be a lot of chrono boost or a lot of energy left on this Nexus to constantly be chrono boosting this cybernetics core. There is not a lot of chrono boost set on this, right? There's no units being made out of the gateway. So we can remove all of the 4 gate stuff. We don't have to defend against that. We might have to defend against 3 gate pressure a little bit later on, because it could be delayed gateway pressure for sure, but it's not going to be anything close to what the 4 gate pressure is. We also get a chance to see the Stargate. So now we know what is my opponent's range. Well, we've just eliminated a lot of it. It's not really Robo, it's not really Twilight Council, it's not really a fast gateway count, it's not really a fast expansion, although it could be delayed stuff of those, right? It could be a canceled Stargate eventually, and then we go into Twilight Council or Robo or whatever it might be, or even an expansion. All of those are possible. But you can see, I see there's 2 gases, so it most likely is some sort of tech build. Everything to me, what I'm able to do is eliminate the very, very macro builds and the very, very micro builds, like the 4 gate pressure. And that's incredibly important as I'm going on as well, because now I get to choose, okay, how do I want to deal with the Stargate pressure? Do I want to go Blink Stalkers, or do I want to go Stargate for myself? It'll be a little bit delayed, right? Do I want to go an expansion? Do I want to go for Robotech? All of these options are open to me, because I know I don't have to defend against a 4 gate. I know I don't have to defend against very heavy gateway pressure, knowing I can ease back a little bit. So right now, what would be a big mistake? Me adding on 2 gateways and taking an expansion, right? That doesn't make sense because of what I scouted. I reduced my opponent's range of putting on a lot of pressure at that 6-minute, 30-second mark, right? Or anywhere from 6 to 6:30 based on cybernetics core, warp gate finishing, and the amount of chrono boosts that are out. I've reduced a lot of my opponent's range that way, and I've been able to now properly go a good response to this Stargate. That is the power of scouting, reducing my opponent's range, and being able to defend a lot more accurately. Lastly, we're going to be going into a Zerg vs. Protoss, pretty standard, pretty normal type of stuff. But right now, I can already tell so much by just this one Nexus. First off, it's probably not something like a Forge Fast Expand, because normally a Forge Fast Expands, this Nexus comes up so much faster. So I already know it's some sort of gateway timing. Now, what are the things that my opponent can't do right now? They can't do something like a cannon rush. Don't have to worry about that. Don't have to worry about my 3rd base getting cannon. What do I have to worry about? Something like really, really, really fast gateway pressure, right? So I've been able to eliminate a lot of the Forge stuff, a lot of the aggressive builds, and now all I have to do is drone up. I don't have to get any Zerglings at all. I can make my build a lot more efficient. These small, slight little tweaks, I can just continue on like what we did in part 1 with just get as many drones and as many harvesters as possible. We can do that right now because of what I saw at this Nexus. The question is how long, and that's going to rely on more scouting and more ranges to be eliminated as time goes on, right? Because the range of attacks grows and grows as time goes on, and both of us have more resources to actually manage and make things. All right, so now I'm able to see a bunch of stuff. Most importantly, I can see the 2 assimilators, which is really important to me. The Stargate is up, the delayed Forge, the delayed gateway, that kind of stuff. Things look perfect to me. So now what do I know my opponent can and cannot do? Is there an immortal timing that can ever happen? No, not really. Right? Obviously, you can't have a fast robo. There's no +1 weapons attack type of timing for quite a long time, right? They still need to get the forge up, they need to get the +1, and then they need to get a plethora of gateways. You know, there's no Twilight Council play anymore, so don't have to worry about Blink, don't have to worry about that composition. I only have to focus on the Stargate and Stargate implications. So just think of what Stargate has. It's Stargate plus pressure, Stargate plus macro. So now I have to defend against those two ranges, and if I am able to eliminate one, which is, let's say I have a burrowed Zergling right here, right? I just place it right here, I'm able to see when they expand. Well, if this burrowed Zergling is there, or a Zergling or any spotter is right here, I'm able to say, well, if it's not an expansion, it's going to be all-out pressure. Let's prepare against that pressure build. And voila, I'm able to have a perfect macro build. This is the power of ranges. This is the power of scouting and reducing the amount of ranges so we're playing as accurately as possible. So when are these attacks coming in? Well, let's just think a Void Ray has to pop up, right? Or even it could be an Oracle and then a couple of Void Rays. So we're still thinking a good 2-3 minutes down the line. So at 8 or 9 minutes, we need to know, do we make units or not? So how do we know to reduce our opponent's range? What are the triggers? Well, a lot of it's going to be experience. It's very obvious when you go and scout an opponent's base and you see they have 0 SCVs or very few SCVs and just a single supply depot, and it's like, oh, okay, they have 2 barracks out on the map. They're going to be proxy marine rushing me, right? That's very easy. But notice what you did right there. You were able to deduce what your opponent was doing just by simply going in, looking at the SCV count, looking there's only 1 supply depot, no barracks. I mean, someone could have been like, well, it could be a command center, a fast command center. Why is it not a fast command center? Well, obviously because there'd be more SCVs. There's a lot of experience that goes into that. So do you know, let's say you're playing Protoss versus Zerg, and you're going gateway, Stargate, gateway, gateway, or gateway, 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 Stargate. Do you know the difference in timings if you're Zerg, let's say? So if I'm able to see 2 gateways popping up, will I be able to know the difference if you put tech behind that or tech might come after that? This is what I'm talking about. The experience that you need is a lot. And I have a solution for you that isn't an all-encompassing 100% this is going to work all the time, but it's probably the broadest way that you can really reduce range. And that is the lovely gas timings. Gas timings are beautiful. Every single important unit that comes out of StarCraft has gas in it. You look at it, Ultralisks, Ravens, Thors, Colossus, High Templars. There is a consistent factor in all these, and that is the amount of gas that you need to have these out in the field. If your opponents are getting a lot of gas, you should know, and you should also know how it kind of implies towards the game. So let's actually jump into some replays, and I will show you the power of gas. All right, we start off with a Protoss versus Terran, and there's some blink pressure right away. So this is actually me as Protoss. I'm able to see that there's no 4th geyser. So this is where a lot of experience comes in, knowing the other race especially. When I see no 4th geyser here, okay, I know at max they can have 3 geysers, and if we take a look, there are exactly 3 geysers. When I see no 4th geyser, I'm saying to myself, well, what do you need all those minerals for? Normally, when you need gas at this stage, around 10 minutes for Terran, they need stuff like upgrades, right? So they need their upgrades, their add-ons on their barracks, they need their starport out, and that's about it, right? So +1 weapons, +1 armor, stim, combat shields, concussive shell, double medevac production, the factory, and the starport. That's a lot of stuff. That requires a ton of gas. And I know personally, through just playing a ton and also researching it, and I know the spend per minute of a lot of these units, I know that if you want to be making Marauders in your composition, you need at least 3 gases to get the medevacs out, to have everything in time. So when I see these Marauders, instantly I already know that this is 3 gases, or they're messing up with a 2 gas build. When I see no 4th gas, I'm saying, okay, it can't be double engineering bay upgrades. It can't be additional additional ghosts added on to this composition. It can't be a really fast second starport. All these are eliminated from my opponent. So what are you doing with extra minerals that you're not doing with this Vespian gas? Well, it can go two different main ways, right? You could put a lot of it into barracks and just get a ton of production structures. Or you can go and take your third base, put a command center up here, put a command center over here, whatever it might be. Those are the two ways you can do it. And if you look at it, on that range, they're actually the farthest apart from each other, right? If you think, okay, how do I get the most amount of production structures as possible while staying alive as Terran? Well, surely I need all my major upgrades. I need my medevacs. Okay, let's get 3 geysers. And then I don't want to get the 4th geyser because I want to spend, everything I can to just get a lot of minerals. And then I get my command center. And then I get my barracks production. So they're polarized. I say this a lot on stream. It's a polarized situation where it's either one extreme of macro mode or the other extreme where they're going to be attacking into you. And in this example, looks like my opponent's going for a command center. So this is the first example of how the gas is able to eliminate a lot of the range of my opponent, in that I know I shouldn't be expecting some sort of huge tech-based all-in. I shouldn't be expecting ghosts and Vikings and medevacs and Marine Marauder because it just wouldn't make sense, and you don't have the gas to be able to do that. Gas is the limiting factor with a lot of that army composition. So how am I going to adjust after seeing there's no 4th gas and he's going a pretty standard build? I'm going to go my own standard build. I'm not going to prepare against anything too funky. So I'm just trying to get my own 3rd base. I'm trying to get my Colossus out to deal with any of this pressure, and I'll be good to go. All right, we now enter a ZVZ where I am this green Zerg. I have my metabolic boost just finishing, and guess what I do? I go scout for what? A lot of people would say, oh, they're trying to find exactly what your opponent is doing. No. I'm trying to find out what my opponent is capable of. So right now, here's the big indicator to me. There's only 1 drone on gas. What are you doing with your life? You need gas. It's 6 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. Okay. Well, as soon as I see something like this, what does it tell me? It tells me that they can't really do a Baneling all-in, right? To do a Baneling all-in, you need all your drones on gas. So that's eliminated. You can't do roaches as well. A lot has just been eliminated from my opponent just because I see 1 drone on gas. That's all I have to see. I can click on this extractor and see 300 gas. What can you really do with that to all-in me? If you get +1 missile attack, you only can get 4 or 8 roaches, depending if you got metabolic boost or not. But normally it's only 4 roaches. That's nothing. I can clear up 4 or 8 roaches easily. This is the power of the gas in the beginning stage and also in the mid-game stage. And you're going to see I'm going to move out. Now metabolic boost is shown to me. And I also try to look at this gas. So just think of all the things my opponent is capable of doing to me. Basically nothing, just zergling pressure a little bit here and there. I can make Banelings and thwart it pretty easily. I can always make more Banelings than my opponent. Am I going to expect some sort of lair tech really fast? No, right? He doesn't have a lot of drones to get his lair super fast. So if I'm in a Spire tech war against him, who's going to win? Of course I'm going to win because I get my lair out so much faster than him. Am I going to be affected by any roach attacks? I could, but because he took off gas, the roach attack won't come for another, 27 plus 60 seconds for the roach warn, 27 plus the roaches coming out, and then another 40 seconds across the map. That's 2 minutes that I have to deal with roaches coming out. That's a lot of time. I can drone up very freely from here on out, and that's exactly what I'm going to do just by seeing the gas counts. How many gases does he have? I click on the extractors. How much gas has he mined there? And if you look in relative to mine, I've been consistently mining the whole time. Gas doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what your opponents are going, but it narrows the range of what they're capable of doing. All the money units are in gas. I've always said this. And if you can see how much gas they've mined, you'll see their aggression factor and how likely they are to attack you. I want to remind you guys that this whole range idea and, eliminating ranges, you don't want to always have like a clear-cut this is 100% what the ranges are. No, it always changes, especially with new games, updates, and also new players coming out and being able to experience things all together. I think one player that's fantastic with breaking the rules of ranges is Ruff. A lot of people say he's super cheesy, he's just a gimmicky player, but really what he does is he takes those ranges and redefines them to make it so unorthodox that you don't know what you're doing anymore and you're more inclined to making mistakes. It's a really beautiful way of playing, and it's so creative, it's so hard to do, it's so hard to be consistent, and he's one of the few people in the world that are able to do that. I really hope you guys invest a lot more time into researching and looking at the other races and enjoy it all, because that's the beauty of StarCraft. This whole ranges and scouting and even tricking your opponents, thinking that a range is cut off and all of a sudden you have it, hidden away, or you cancel a building and remake something. That's really cool. So again, I hope you guys love it. I hope you guys really learn to make a great macro build order. I was about to conclude, but I realized I had one more thing to say. I see these YouTubers go out with these one-liners a lot. And I didn't know whether or not I was going to be that type of guy, but I think I found the perfect thing to say every single time. So you're going to hear it from now on, and I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. And it is, love what you do and do what you love. I hope you guys do, and I'll catch you next time.